Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hey, welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. Right off to the side here is Mr. Jorge Cervantes, author of the, and there's John Cornett, and there I am on another camera. There he is. Jorge, welcome back.
Well, thanks a lot. It's really good to be back.
Having you back. And Teresa Stanford, welcome back, Teresa.
Oh, thank you.
This is my wife, and it is actually our 27th anniversary. We've been together for a little bit longer than that, but we're going to run some old video and talk about some of our travails. But standing by there, you saw Mr. John Cornett ready to play some music for you.
I'm still here. I'll be back.
Good. He'll be back right after the news. And even before that, we're going to bring on our infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves.
I feel the force.
All right, our hemp news tonight starts with a story from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. For the first time ever, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to restrict the Department of Justice from interfering with states that have legalized adult use marijuana. The importance of this 267 to 165 bipartisan vote on the Blumenauer Amendment cannot be overstated. Today, nearly 1 in 4 Americans reside in jurisdiction where the adult use of cannabis is legal under state statute. Today's actions by Congress highlights the growing power of our movement and the work of all leaders around the country who've helped make this happen. Portland's own U.S. Representative Earl Blumenauer, co-founder of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus and lead sponsor of the amendment, said, quote, "It's past time we protect all cannabis programs. We have much more work to do. The federal government is out of touch and our cannabis laws are out of date. I'm pleased that the House agrees and we're able to move forward," end quote. Now we must shift our focus to the United States Senate and ensure that they do not move or strip out these hard-fought protections. On Wednesday, the House approved a similar amendment protecting the marijuana laws of Indian tribes by a voice vote, and no member requested a roll call vote, so that language is also now attached to the spending bill. Blumenauer, in a floor debate on the state protection amendment on Wednesday evening, said, quote, "We're watching the growth of this industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry," end quote. The fate of cannabis measures in the Senate is now unknown. Historically, that chamber's Appropriations Committee has been relatively open to attaching marijuana riders to spending bills and has consistently approved the medical cannabis protections. But the body's Republican leadership may be reluctant to take further steps of also trying the Justice Department's hands when it comes to enforcing federal cannabis prohibition against licensed cannabis businesses and consumers in states that now allow recreational or adult use of cannabis and sales. Currently, medical marijuana is protected from federal enforcement, but adult, social, or recreational use is not. Also from Washington, D.C., the presence of THC in blood is not a consistent predictor of either driver performance or impairment, according to conclusions of a new Congressional Research Service report assessing cannabis and psychomotor performance. The report acknowledges, quote, "Research studies have been unable to consistently correlate levels of marijuana consumption, or THC, in a person's body and levels of impairment. Thus, some researchers and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration have observed that using a measure of THC as evidence of a driver's impairment is not supported by scientific evidence to date," end quote. It further reports that data is conflicting with regard to whether marijuana usage plays a role in traffic accidents, noting, quote, levels of impairment that can be identified in laboratory settings may not have a significant impact in real-world settings, where many variables affect the likelihood of a crash occurring. The report concludes, quote, there is as yet no scientifically demonstrated correlation between levels of THC and degrees of impairment of driver performance, and epidemiological studies disagree as to whether marijuana use by a driver results in increased crash risk. Based on current knowledge and enforcement capabilities, it's not possible to articulate a simple level or rate of marijuana consumption and a corresponding effect on driving ability, end quote. These findings are consistent with prior net studies by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and others that the presence of THC in blood, particularly at low levels, is not consistently correlated with either psychomotor impairment or crash culpability. 6 states, Illinois, Montana, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Washington State, impose various per se limits for the presence of specific amounts of THC in blood, while 12 states, Arizona, Delaware, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Utah, and Wisconsin, impose zero tolerance per se standards. In those states, it's a criminal violation of the traffic safety laws to operate a motor vehicle with any detectable levels of THC in their blood. Colorado law infers impairment when, in instances where THC is detected in the blood at levels of 5 milligrams per milliliter or higher. The Congressional Research Society report is Marijuana Safety and Highway Safety is available online at crsreports.congress.gov. That's crsreports.congress.gov. From Salem, Democratic Governor Kate Brown signed legislation, Senate Bill 970, prohibiting landlords from taking discriminatory action against those who either use medical cannabis or possess cannabis-related convictions. The measure states that a landlord may not take into consideration an applicant's, quote, status as a medical marijuana patient or whether they've had a conviction based solely on the use or possession of marijuana, end quote. This new law takes effect on January 1st, 2020. The state governments in Connecticut, West Virginia, and Illinois have expanded the list of acceptable medical conditions for which patients may qualify for their state's medical marijuana programs. Republican Governor Doug Ducey signed legislation into law amending Wichita, Kansas medical cannabis access program to require all medical cannabis products sold in licensed dispensaries be independently tested by November 1st, 2020. Testing labs must be accredited and must have no financial relationship with any dispensary. The measure also reduces application fees for medical cannabis holders. An estimated 200,000 Arizonans are registered with the state to access cannabis therapy. In Austin, Texas, Republican Governor Greg Abbott signed legislation into law expanding the pool of patients eligible to receive low THC, high CBD medical cannabis products to permit those patients diagnosed with autism, ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or Lou Gehrig's disease, multiple sclerosis, seizure disorders, incurable neurodegenerative disorders, and or terminal cancer to be eligible to register in Texas's limited cannabis access program. The measure also removes the requirement that patients obtain recommendations from 2 participating physicians prior to enrolling. So now it just takes 1 physician in Texas. This new law takes effect on September 1st, 2019. Out of Quebec, Canada, a history of cannabis use is associated with lower fasting insulin levels in obese subjects, according to data published in the Journal of Diabetes. Canadian researchers assessed the relationship between cannabis consumption and fasting insulin levels and insulin resistance in a nationally representative sample of over 129,000 adults. They reported that both current and past cannabis use was associated with significant and persistent changes in insulin levels in obese subjects compared to non-users. However, these changes were only evident in overweight subjects. The authors wrote, quote, we found that lifetime marijuana use is significantly associated with lower fasting insulin and a measure of insulin resistance in obese individuals, end quote. The authors concluded, quote, we also found that a long time after 10 years of cessation, former users showed significantly lower levels of fasting insulin scores, or HOMA-IR scores, than did their never users, independent of their frequency of use in the past, end quote. This data is consistent with prior observational studies finding that those with a history of marijuana use possess more favorable indices related to diabetic control than non-users. This study, lifetime use of marijuana in relation to insulin resistance in lean, overweight, and obese U.S. adults, appears in this month's edition of the Journal of Diabetes. Out of Sacramento, California, the possession of small amounts of cannabis by inmates is not explicitly criminalized under the state's marijuana laws. Justices in the 3rd District Court of Appeals have just ruled. The justices determined that, quote, the plain language of the law excludes marijuana consumption by those incarcerated, but does not criminalize activities specific to its possession. Nonetheless, the Department of Corrections may still sanction the behavior as a violation of the prison rules. This case is California versus Raybon. Last story tonight's out of Providence, Rhode Island. State-registered medical cannabis card holders typically report reducing or eliminating their use of prescription pharmaceuticals, including opioids, according to data published in the journal Substance Use and Misuse. A team of investigators from Brown University in Rhode Island conducted a series of qualitative interviews with medical marijuana card holders. Respondents frequently reported cannabis to be, quote, more effective for certain conditions, end quote, than conventional medications, and also said that it possessed fewer side effects. 76% of the respondents reported being able to either cut back or completely stop taking other prescription medications once they started cannabis medically. The findings are consistent with dozens of prior studies reporting that patients enrolled in medical cannabis access programs frequently mitigate or eliminate their use of opioids or other medications following the initiation of cannabis therapy. This study, Marijuana as a Substitute for Prescription Medications, a qualitative study, appears in Substance Use and Misuse. We can only hope that some drug abuse counselors will take that to heart. That's the end of our Hemp News segment tonight. Mr. John Cornett's ready to go. Welcome back, John.
Hey, Paul, how you doing? Hey, I just want to ask a quick question of you. Have you heard anything about that young girl, Kylie Dixon, and her mom, who were pursued by
I know who you're talking about. This is a young lady who
13-year-old.
who was a 13-year-old lady who was a cancer patient.
Right.
She'd been undergoing chemotherapy for over a year.
Right.
And
It wasn't shrinking the tumors.
her mother used medical marijuana,
Right.
and it helped her, but
Right.
the hospital that she was in didn't like that.
Right.
And the daughter wanted to just use medical marijuana, so the mother took her out of state to Nevada, and they arrested her in Nevada and took the child from
That
her.
sucks. That really
And so
sucks.
they've got her back in the
I
hospital
called
care.
everybody I could complaining about that. I think it's ridiculous for legislators and such to get involved with the mother's care of her children, particularly when it involves using a botanical, for God's sake. I'm sorry, but anyway, this is a song about that very subject. You know, cannabis is here and is here to stay. I'm happy to report. Yeah. There's a train coming. There's a train coming. There's a train coming. And it's steadying on the track. People changing. People changing. People changing, and for some there's no turning back. Cannabis, cannabis, more than just, it's more than just cannabis. It's more than just a weed. People talking, people talking, people talking. This prohibition has to stop. Children dying, children dying, children dying while we legislate the crop. Cannabis, more than just cannabis, is more than just cannabis. It's more than just a weed. Cannabis, 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 cannabis. It's more than just a weed.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Jorge, for coming back on the show. You just got back from Colombia, right?
Yeah, I just flew up. It's about a week I've been here. Yeah, I was there. I've been going there on and off for the last 4 years. It's pretty amazing what's going on there.
It is. We spent a little bit of time over there around Expo Weed in Medellin. on a couple
Right, that's
occasions.
right. We remember we went on the cable car, went
Yeah.
up the mountain. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
It was a lot of fun. Got a real view of the city of
Yeah.
eternal spring. That's
I'm
what they
planning
call
on going back
Medellin.
for Expo Weed again. I don't know
Okay.
if you're going to be there, but
Yeah,
we hope to
I
see
don't know
you.
if I'll be there or not. It depends if I'm in the country or not. I'll go back. I'll
Expo
spend
Medellin.
Expo Medellin. Eso es. I'll be in Colombia, July and August.
I see.
I'll be going back. Yeah, I'm spending more and more time there. There's so
There's
much
tons
going
of things
on.
happening there.
Oh yeah, it's
You know,
amazing.
it
It's
is,
amazing.
It is. And all the Canadian corporations are over there trying to buy up all the
Well,
rights they can. And
the
they're
deal-
arguing about the licenses. They haven't got many of them activated yet.
Yes, that's true. It's you've got to go through several hoops. It's just like here, but on the other side, they really don't know what they're doing. They're just starting. Some companies have already, gone through all the process and everything, and then the rules changed later. Before, you had to have a license tied to a piece of land in a specific area. So there was many partnerships made. Now, they open the law so you can have a license and use it on any place, any different land, because they didn't realize just how restrictive that was. Because
What's the learning curve? in all
oh
of these
man, I
things?
mean,
I heard, what is it, Pharmacy Yellow got the first plants in the
Farmacielo
ground?
got the first license, but at the same time, they've been in business for several years and they haven't had one harvest. They haven't shipped anything.
Right.
So there's
Have some shipments gone to Canada? I've heard
there's
somebody
been
has
one.
shipped
There's been
some
one.
to Canada.
It was called Clever Leaves.
Okay.
And Clever Leaves sent a small shipment. It wasn't that, it wasn't a big one, but it was the first
It's
step.
legal.
Well,
It's legal
yeah,
and
it's
licensed,
weird.
and the government of Colombia knows it's going, and the government of Canada is accepting it.
Yes, and then they have to make the deal in between. There's setting up a system takes a while, and it's international law that we're dealing with, not just Colombian law or Canadian law, where they're used to it.
Yeah,
And
there are a lot of
everything's
changes
new.
in the
Yeah.
international law with the World Health Organization and the United Nations governing body in Austria for
Yes.
International
Yes.
Drug Control Board.
Yeah, that's coming up.
They're mandated by the United Nations to oversee the international treaties governing drug prohibition. There's the Single Convention Treaty of 61 amendments and
1961,
the
that's correct.
United Nations treaties on psychotropic substances
Yes.
and their amendments too.
Yeah.
So it's really complicated.
Yeah, it's way more complicated than it looks like on the surface, because if it was up to me, I'd just plant and start taking care of the plants, it'd be a lot easier.
Well, I think the thing is, in Canada, people get paid a lot more than they do in Colombia.
Well,
So the
there's
price
several
of
things
Colombian
about
cannabis
Colombia
is
that
less.
makes, yes, There's several things about Colombia that make it wonderful. Number one, it's in the tropics, so they have 12 hours of darkness, 12 hours of light.
Right.
You can grow 4 crops a year there easily, and it's not very expensive. Just because, you know, you don't have to have any lights. Well, you do, only in the mother plants, you know. And
I just want to say real quick that if you have any questions for Jorge about growing cannabis, or because that's what he's famous for. In fact, here is his book, the Cannabis Encyclopedia. There it is. So that's your new big book. But you have how many different books?
Yeah,
like a dozen or so, right?
Yeah, at least a dozen. A dozen. I got them in 7 languages. I do. I've
just
done,
came out in Russian, I know,
right,
a few years ago.
Right, a few years ago. Yeah. Now Putin's closed down the borders for cannabis. Yeah, it's a little rougher over there, but I'm real pleased. You know, I got Russian and Japanese both, so that's pretty cool. And all the common European languages. Yeah, so that's good. But what I've been really interested in is South America, because that's where things are really going to change. The labor cost is less, but the climate is such that it makes it easy to grow cannabis.
A pound of cannabis is like less than $10.
Oh yeah, well they were when I was over in Cauca and over in Toribio.
Yeah,
it cost.
Teresa and I toured the fields there in 2016.
Yeah, okay, it was 2016. Wow,
that's when we first went there.
Okay, yeah. That was the year after the coup, after the
peace
ceasefire. Ceasefire. There's
still better
having trouble with that.
Yeah, I know. I've heard
it's coming
about the
back.
problems.
There's troubles. But I talked to Donnie Wershafter and Mike Bifari. They were in Toribio at the hotel there.
Yeah, Don has a nice cannabis museum hotel there in Toribio.
Yes, it was amazing. He brought all kinds of things over from the United States, got them into Colombia, brought them in, and now they've got it's like a 4-story hotel there, but the top floor is all terrace, and it's really nice. The place stays cool. It's kind of like up in the mountains in Toribio. It's on the Nasa Indian Reservation, or Indian land they call it. And there's cannabis farms all over the place. But you know, I mean, it's still a little sketchy there. I'd be careful. I mean, it's not like Touristville, you know. They've had some problems. And yeah.
Okay, and so you're back now, and you've been looking at hemp here in Oregon and Washington, right? I know you were saying.
Oh my God!
And it's booming.
It's
really
incredible. I was just down hanging out with Jerry Norton in Salem, Oregon. And as you know, Jerry Norton, he's kind of like Mr. Hemp in Oregon. He started everything. He started the fair.
The Oregon Hemp Convention that just happened a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Jerry is he comes from a grass seed family. So he's a farmer, you know, like since he was born, and the whole family's farmers for generations. And he married into another, his wife is from even a bigger grass seed family.
Wow.
So these guys are farmers, you know, and they're way different than just like casual cannabis growers, because they're thinking about things like, well, how do I get processed 20,000 pounds, or, you know, they look at it.
Basically, the most valuable crops these days are smokable THC flowers with no THC, smokable CBD flowers is what I should have said. And that way they can sell it in states where CBD cannabis products is legal. Then it's biomass of raw, low THC cannabis for extract purposes.
Right.
So those are the 2 big markets. But I think
these
these markets are
huge.
Transient. Right now the prices are high. True. The prices are going to go down. The real value in hemp is going to be in the fiber and the seed, the oil and the protein from the seed and the fiber. Eventually, they're going to eclipse the
It very
CBD.
well could be. There's a lot of there's a lot of places you can use them.
It's going to take a while for those markets to develop.
They're putting hemp, CBD in everything now.
Yeah.
They're putting. I mean, it could be a transient market because They're putting it in soap. They put everything, all kinds of stuff.
I just came from Fort Worth, Texas. We had a story about Texas there.
Right.
And there are CBD stores popping up all over
Texas?
Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas. Right.
Is this
Your
the
sign
Texas?
CBD
You mean the one in
Texas.
America?
Yeah, the one in America. Right.
That one?
My
Wow.
mom moved back there, so I went there to visit her,
God.
and I was amazed to see these
CBD
CBD
stores.
Just 6 months ago, they were arresting people at the airport with CBD lotions. So now they are, a couple of those
That's
cases got thrown
amazing.
out by grand juries. They took them to grand jury in
Good.
Texas, and the grand jury refused to prosecute the people.
Wonderful.
So now the governor, as we read on our hemp news tonight,
Yes.
just read about the CBD being allowed.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's changing really quickly all over
And there's
the world.
already 100,000 patients in Oklahoma.
100,000 in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, in the first year.
You mean
They-
Oklahoma?
right north of Texas.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
You know, they
It's like, wow.
They in Oklahoma
I can't
10 years
believe
ago, I knew people that were said to sell 2 joints that got 99 years in jail.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
visit Oklahoma.
Yeah, I know.
But
It's-
now,
it's-
if you have medical, it's blown wide open.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
I know Oklahoma. I know
the Seattle Hemp Fest,
what do
where
they call that?
I'm going to be
Extension
speaking this year.
agent.
You're
I
gonna
know
be
the
at
state and extension
Are you going to be? No,
agent.
you'll be in Columbia. You won't be around for the Seattle
No,
Hemp
no,
Fest.
no,
I'm
no.
going
I've
to
been
be at the
spending the
Seattle
time
Hemp
down
Fest.
there. There's so
the
much
Seattle
going
Hemp
on.
Fest organizes an Oklahoma City Hemp Fest now. So
Oklahoma, I still can't believe
Vivian
it.
McPeak and the Seattle Hemp Fest team
He goes. Vivian actually.
Vivian goes there and
going to
speaks at the
Oklahoma?
Oklahoma Hemp Fest last year, and they've got another one coming this year.
That
It's amazing, isn't
Yeah, I
it?
remember
That was
Paul
like-
was saying that was like one of the last places
Yeah,
that would
that's
probably
never
legalize
going to
it.
happen. That's why I can't believe it. It was
You know,
Timothy McVeigh from there.
I
think.
got it. Yeah, well, he did a horrible thing there.
Yes.
But I didn't see this. This was brought in during the news. We have a little
Oh,
sign here that says "Happy Anniversary, Paul and Teresa." It's our
Can you see
27th
that? Okay,
anniversary.
I'll move this
I want
way.
to
Right.
thank
we
Nikki
go.
and teams. I was reading the news coming in. Michael,
Nice,
thanks.
yeah.
Thanks for the nice little card. That's a big card,
Lovely.
and it's got a pot leaf on it even.
Yeah,
27 years.
that was really nice.
You know what? We have a video where you're talking about harvesting before a storm.
Oh yeah.
Because
There's-
people like to see marijuana and see things. Let's go ahead and run that
Okay.
video, and we'll be right back after this video.
Cool. Well, it's harvest time today in my garden. Some things are ready, some things are almost ready, some things are a little bit past, or some plants are that way. So here in Northern California, we've got this huge storm coming in. And I got to get these plants inside because tonight, about 11 o'clock, according to the best information I have, these plants are going to be hit with a huge storm. There's going to be about they said on the news, and I looked at several reports, somewhere between an inch and an inch and a half of rain is going to come down. So I don't want these plants to get beat up because it beats them pretty hard. And, I just don't want that to happen. They've already gone through one rainstorm and done very well with it. See, I staked them up or trellised them up really, really pretty well. So now we don't have such a problem. Let's look at each one of these plants right now. This right here is sour diesel, and you can see this thing looks pretty darn ready. It might be just a little bit early, but like I say, if I waited until next week and then I've got to go on the road, I've got a bunch of stuff. I haven't even been in the garden for the last 2 months. 2 months, actually. Yeah, I've just been on the road looking at everybody else's plants. Okay, so here's the sour diesel. There's my little Chihuahua, or Chiweenie. She's a Chihuahua with a Dachshund cross. And down here, let's take a look. This one's a green crack, as you can see. And this one is definitely ready. I don't have the facility to look at them really closely and show you the resin glands. I can, look at them myself, but I can't put it on the lens. It makes it a little hard. But this one's definitely ready. Now, this is this big, weird blue dream here. Let me show you kind of up in the sky here. This one is just, I don't know, the growth is kind of weird, but you can see this baby is totally ready. I've looked at it with a little close-up magnifying glass, and guaranteed this one's ready. So that's a big blue dream. And here's another one here. This is the sugary plant. I'll just show you the buds here. But yeah, they've filled in, and they're nice and solid now. They're looking pretty good. Pretty good. I'd say this garden looks pretty great for all the time I've spent with it. And you can see there's some, there's these flowers that fall off of the crepe myrtle up above. But in this bed, okay, then the next one, we're on this side. There's the sugary, and then here's the green crack right here. You can see these limbs, or these branches, they're just not very sturdy. But I have to say, these plants are not prone to fungus, which is really cool, because they've certainly had their chance to get a bunch of fungus. And then this one back here is the sour diesel. Again, see there we go. And you can look up inside here. I haven't really taken off any of the leaves. They're dying back. I haven't watered these plants for approximately 2 weeks, and they're not the worse for wear. They're looking okay. The garden didn't get that much sun. That was one of the things about it. The buds are just a touch leafy, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's best if you can get them in bright sun. There's no doubt about that.
Full sun if you can.
Yep. So if anyone out there has a question for Jorge tonight, you can call us at that number that will be popping up on your screen shortly. It's it's actually already there. 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. And we do have a studio audience. You're welcome to come down to our TV show anytime. And there is a microphone off camera that's available for studio audience members to ask questions. And it looks like Judy is at the microphone. Go ahead, Judy.
Oh. Yeah, somebody unusual. Hey, thank you so much for doing the show. Paul, as always, Jorge, thanks again for being on. And Teresa, it is great to see you on the show. Great, terrific.
The first time for her to be back on the show since show number 19
it's been
in
a while.
1997. Really? This is show 992.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
Very happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very happy anniversary. You deserve the sun, the moon, and the stars. The two of you, you really do. At any rate, the question. Actually, I have a couple of questions. One's about growing, but one's about the other side of the development of the freedom of cannabis in the world. And I struggle, and maybe this has to do with age, but I'm really struggling with the level of business takeover, what our governments are doing, our own, what I feel is largely very well-meaning legislature, in so many respects have torched us. They certainly torched the medical patients. They didn't mean to, but they certainly have. But the recreational side too, because of this tremendous, what we're producing twice as much as we need in the state, and all the problems that creates.
I think it's actually 6 or 7 times as much.
6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
Anyway, long-winded. Point being, in Colombia, I'm aware that of what's been developing there terrifically. In Colombia, in South America, in general, I mean, are you seeing, are people, human beings, retaining more freedom to grow and use and produce their own medicine than it seems that the United States is, and therefore the United States, of course, exports that attitude of restrict, control, report,
Well, it's kind of, for example, we have 3 countries in Latin America where you can grow cannabis legally. First was Uruguay, and that's rather limited there. You know, they haven't really done a good job of regulation. And then now Mexico has a new president. They call him, what's his nickname? AMLO, and Obrero, and he's from the left. His job is to implement the cannabis policy.
Yeah, the Supreme Court ordered to do that. They're past schedule.
And he's got to put it on fast track.
Yeah.
It's going to get all screwy, and it is, because that's the way governments work. And then now, but the people I know in Mexico, well, Vicente Fox, I mean, the ex-president or the president from 2006.
You were at a conference with him.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in
oh yeah.
the winter, right?
Yeah, he wrote the foreword to this book, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
He's, you know, and I still keep in contact with him too. He's promoting all kinds of stuff with cannabis. So, and there's all kinds of people that are very, very interested in converting their greenhouses to cannabis cultivation facilities, and as well large tracts of land, because I don't know if you realize it or not, Mexico's got a lot of cultivation going on, all kinds of plants. They've got a big export market. They've got a big national market.
I've got to say that when I was 11 years old, a Vietnam veteran smoked Mexican cannabis with me. And when I was 13 years old, I bought my first pound of cannabis for $110.
That was great.
Like
yeah.
74, 75.
Right. That was in Texas.
That was in
all
Texas.
All that great Mexican
that
dope came across the border.
I got high off it.
Oh,
though,
yeah.
but, yeah.
No, and half of it was seeds. It had stems. It had like, I would get the kilos.
Yeah.
And that had sometimes, well, a lot of times you get it really clean. You know, you never knew, but it was, you get one.
Yeah.
You know, you get the lizards running and stuff like that.
We have another person at the microphone ready to ask a question. Go right ahead.
Oh, well, mine has to do with growing marijuana. I want to know why some plants, when you put them outside, we put the plants out on the 17th and 18th of May.
Okay.
3 of the...
They started to flower.
Mm-hmm. Why? And they were all the same strain that flowered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just want to know why some
Why
do.
did it happen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. May,
It should have been
it
enough
should have
light.
been fine.
There must have been something when they went
okay.
out. They'd been exposed to more than 10 hours of darkness.
How many hours of light were they getting beforehand?
8.
8 or
I mean,
darkness.
darkness. They were
18.
getting 18 hours of
okay,
light.
18 hours of light. So they should come out. Okay, there's several things that affect flowering. They don't just have an on and off trigger like we thought before. And there's 2 things that could have happened. It could have gotten cold. It could have been a temperature shock. And as soon as anything is shocked or goes into a stress mode, they flower because they think the end of life is coming. So they want to make seeds. So they're guaranteed more life for the next year.
They turn back, though. They don't stay.
Yeah, it stunts them. It takes them about 6 to 8 weeks to come back.
That's right.
And then they will start vegetating again. So you cut your harvest down to about 30% of what it would have been if it had stayed in.
Oh, I know that one year when I did it, I actually took out little lights of America and put them over and it turned them back faster.
Yeah.
Okay, you gave them more light.
Yeah, it cut that transition probably in half anyway that way. But
you got to be real careful.
I wondered why these.
Okay, did they suffer any other stress like temperature stress? Was it a lot colder?
No, they had the same as the rest of them that didn't flower.
Yeah, I often had one
So there was-
specific variety that would
Okay,
flower.
that was where I was going.
You know.
It was out one time, and then several years back when I said it happened, but I went out, put electricity out there, added light to turn them back, but I just decided to let them turn themselves back. And
our New York City diesel. If I didn't wait
was,
and put it out,
Oregon
it would.
diesel.
It was an Oregon diesel. It would
Okay, so
always
that's a
start
genetic thing.
to
It's a
flower.
genetic
And
issue.
I finally learned to be real careful about the amount of light. Make sure it's on 24-hour light before putting it outside for a couple of weeks. That way, that first night in mid-May is the first night it's had in a couple of weeks, and then it will acclimate better.
I've been giving them 24-hour light from the time we got them as little clones.
I see.
Clones. And then I set up about a month before we were going to put them out to give them at least 8 hours of darkness. So
Okay,
they get
this
used
is
to-
what we have with flowering. You've got a complete range of stuff. You can't, I mean, it's very difficult to make generalities. You've got stuff that really never flowers. It just keeps going and going, and it's kind of a low level. And
A
the
lot of tropical ones,
Yeah,
right.
tropical ones,
I
completely
had a
different
Thai
growth
bud
habit.
that never finished.
And then on the other side, you've got plants that will flower after 21 days, every day of their life, every day, guaranteed.
Autoflower.
And you've got everything in between.
Yeah.
But there's levels of it. It's not black and white. So when something happens, we don't know a lot about the genetics. We really don't. We've got really strong cannabis, but that's about it. And it'll go okay in some situations. But there's a lot of recessive genes still in these plants that people haven't pulled out because they really don't have the skills to do it. And then also, beyond that, there's a lot of recessive everything. I mean, but deep recessive genes, and then other plants that you cross. And there's not a lot of true breeding plants, and you need those true breeding
It
plants.
takes several generations to
It takes like 5
stabilize.
generations to stabilize it, and it's quite difficult because the plant's bred back to itself, and you've got to have dominant genes on all the chromosomes. It's super important.
Okay, if anyone out there has any questions, you can call that number on your screen. It's 503-288-4442. And we've got another lady at the microphone ready to ask a question. Go right ahead, Nikki.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy anniversary, you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for the nice card.
That's
I take it you
number
brought it
one.
in. I was reading the news. So.
The other thing is to Jorge. So this is my first year. I'm doing this all by myself again. I made a beautiful garden with a lot of tomatoes and veggies, and I'm really proud of myself. But the gentleman that I got one of my clones from, he asked me if by chance I had any of my squash or anything like that next to any of my plants. And I said, yes, I do. And he said, you may want to be careful with powdery mildew.
Oh.
And I said, okay, I didn't know it could transfer like that. And so they're
I
about
hadn't heard that.
2.5 to 3 feet away from the nearest pumpkin, I guess I could say. And what I did is I slid a wood kind of wall in between my plants and my veggies. So I'm hoping that kind of protects them, but I'm wondering if there's something else you can advise me of how to keep them protected.
Yeah, sure. So melons, not so, cucumbers somewhat. What's the other? Nasturtiums, calendulas. All of those tend to collect powdery mildew, especially late in the season, and because they slow down in growth. So what you do is I would be treating that, and it's really easy to treat it like with baking soda. Take that and shake it up in water, and which you saturate the water with baking soda, and then you just spray it on the leaves. But you got the leaves, especially the pumpkin or any squash you have, and it will just change the pH of the leaf, and it won't hurt anything. But you got to do it pretty regularly. But yeah, if you do it like once a week, it never gets a chance to grow, and that works really well. You
So
just
you
treat
spray
the
it
one.
on the cannabis too, or just
Well,
the
yeah,
melons?
you can spray it on the cannabis too because it's it's pretty benign, but it just changes the pH of the leaf to base like 7, and the fungus needs like a pH of 4.5
I
to
see.
grow.
I see.
So you just give it a condition it can't grow in, and that's it, and it works really well. But there's a lot of simple fungicides, but yeah, it can get bad in the end of the year.
I'm going to try that. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay, sure,
That's
sure.
a good question. I learned something.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. We have an old video from 1997 when Teresa was last on our television show. So here we are 22 years ago. We'll be right back.
It's time for Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells you the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition. And now here's the host of your show, Paul Stanford.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. You may know that our program is a production of our political committee, Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp. Our political committee is circulating a petition, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, and a referendum to recall the legislature's bill to recriminalize marijuana. On today's show, we have my lovely wife, Teresa Stanford, and Donna McPherson, treasurer of Portland Normal. Welcome,
Hi, Paul.
ladies.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Donna. Yes, Paul.
Right now, we've been circulating the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act on a volunteer basis till just the past week when we finally been able to start paying petitioners. We're also starting to circulate a referendum petition. Here we have the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. It's a petition to tax and regulate the sales of marijuana to adults in state liquor stores, license farmers to grow the drug for sales to the OLCC. It will let the OLCC put it in pharmacies at cost, and then in the state liquor stores and bars and smoking establishments that bar the entrance of those under 21. It will also allow farmers without a license to cultivate industrial hemp to make paper, fabric, protein, and oil. And we've just begun circulating the referendum to recall House Bill 3643. This bill was passed by the legislature to recriminalize simple possession of under an ounce of marijuana. And we're fighting hard to help get these things on the ballot. When we get the referendum on the ballot, we want you to vote no on that. When we get the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act on the ballot, we want you to vote yes on that. You can give us a call. In fact, we need you to give us a call so that we can get these petitions into your hands. Give us a call at 235-4606. If you're outside the Portland area, then it's 1-503-235-4606. You can also get our petitions through the internet. In fact, you can watch this TV program through the internet now through our webpage. And the webpage address is www.crrh.org. And right at that page, you'll find a link where you'll be able to download and print our petitions on your home printer. If you've got a waterproof inkjet printer or a laser printer, we urge you to print the petitions right from there.
Yes, very good.
We'd like to go into some of the usefulness of cannabis. You know, we been looking at some of our past shows and thought that we were having too many men on. It was just talking guys. And we thought that we needed to try to encourage the women out there.
There's females working too hard for this cause.
That's right. That's right. And we need to let you know that this is a diverse movement that we're forming here. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it takes everybody putting in what they think is their talent. Like when I first started doing the activist work, I thought, well, what do I want to do? I was fortunate enough to, at first, start making hemp seed cookies. It's actually the kind that's legal. It's actually used for birdseed, but it's got such a good nutty taste that I actually made these really good like raisin, chocolate chip, and hemp seed cookies. Well, one time we're at an event where I was selling these.
All right.
Wow.
Getting to the good part.
Uh-oh, did I miss the...
That's
I messed
okay.
up the good part. Well, it'll have to be the next time you're on. But it won't be another 22 years. It'll have to be less than 22 years. Yeah, we've changed since then, haven't we?
Just a
but
bit.
you can see, 22 years ago, we were still working for legalization. We actually put the referendum on the ballot in 1997 for a vote in 98, and we put medical marijuana on the ballot in 1998, and we had people voting yes on medical marijuana and no on recriminalization. The legislature had passed a bill to make possession of less than an ounce a misdemeanor, where it had just been a ticketable offense. And so We put that on the ballot and ended up getting 67% of the vote and won every county in the state saying, no, we're not going to recriminalize marijuana. And that's when we started to turn back the tide of recriminalization. Several other states had passed recriminalization. And the legislature had almost passed it in '95, but they made it on the ballot, and then our governor, Kitzhaber, signed it into law, and we got enough signatures to stop it from going into effect. Obviously, it was against the will of the people. We got 2/3 of the vote, even in rural
They keep
counties.
doing stuff like that. You know, the people who decide something, they say, well, we don't think that's a good idea, or that's too much work. It doesn't make sense. Every time they put their finger in, they seem to make more regulations, more problems.
It's being overregulated now. Hopefully we can change that.
But see, it's all of this prohibition. When you legalize something, you've got to squeeze it all into a little package into a short time. And that's a lot of pressure, you know, and there's a lot of changes going everywhere because, for example, well, you can do genetics tests now that you couldn't do before, and they're very inexpensive. There's all this information that needs to be done about, or I mean, needs to be studied on cannabis that needs to come in. That can be done at a real rapid rate now. There's all kinds of people there's programs in schools now, cannabis programs in different schools.
Teaching people how to go into the business and
they're learning much faster than they were before.
1/7 of the medical schools are starting to teach doctors about cannabis.
1/7?
Yeah, 1/7.
That's a huge.
That's a big step forward. Things are starting to change.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You know, Teresa and I have been going through this corporate takeover fight for about 3 years now, a little bit over 3 years now.
Man, that's horrible that happened.
It is. You know, they've just taken everything from us. They took our garden, our outdoor building that you visited.
Right.
They signed a contract saying they would pay $325,000 for that property. Then they moved to take it without ever making a penny in payment. And because we could not afford a lawyer, they got it by default. So they took possession of the property and then they sold it. They sold it, to cover some of their legal bill. They spent $2 million on attorneys. So they just took our property without even paying one penny. And guess who owns our company now? The guy who came in and took over our office, put Teresa through hell and my children through hell. This guy, Alan Rutenberg from Toronto, Canada, is now on the board also of Kronos Group. And Kronos Group just got $1.8 billion from the Altria Group, which used to be called Philip Morris. Philip Morris changed its name to the Altria Group, the owners of Marlboro. So my clinic and all of our couple 100,000 patient records are now in the hands of the Marlboro man.
You're joking.
No. And
That's
it's well
where
documented.
That all went.
Yeah. And they're trading it on the internet. On the Canadian Stock Exchange, the Toronto Stock Exchange. It's pretty amazing. Teresa has been calling patients.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
We still care about our patients, and so I've just been trying to reach out to whoever I can to say, hey, this is what's been happening to us, and give them a chance to meet our doctor now, Dr. David Knox. He's an awesome doctor.
The Knox family is a
one
whole
of the
family
best.
of physicians.
Well, there's some really bad things that have been going on, you know, within the drug
They've
world.
impoverished
totally.
me.
It's horrible. It's horrible, and they don't lose a night's sleep, and they treat other people as criminals many times.
They fired all of our other employees and badly mistreated them as well.
My God.
Anyway, so to find out more about that, give us a call. You know, our telephone number hasn't changed. I've had this number for almost 30 years. 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you need a referral to meet a reputable doctor, not just here in Oregon and Washington, but anywhere in the United States, we can refer you to doctors. If you have any of these conditions, just call us at 503-235-4606. And tell us more about your book, Jorge, the Cannabis Encyclopedia.
Well, this is actually the best work to date, my best work. It's about 600 pages, 3-column, 5.5 or 8.5 by 11, 2,000 photos. It took me 6 years to write. It really is an excellent book. It's easy and simple to read. It's made like a research book or a book that you should have.
If you have
around,
any
and
issue, you can just look
really
it up
quickly.
very
Yeah.
easily. If you say, I want to know about lights, I want to know about water, I want to know about bugs or how to treat them or the mold, for instance, and you
everything's
just look
in there.
things up in your index. You can even look me up in the index there.
That's true. That's true.
You got about 25 pictures in there, I think, for my garden.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm on page 100. You can see me.
Okay,
That's
remember
easy
that,
to remember.
page 100.
Page 100. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, this book. The good thing is about it, it's well researched. You can get the information's guaranteed correct. And that's one of the things with the internet. A lot of times you look stuff up and it's pretty dodgy. So guaranteed correct information. And you've got
So how many
solutions
languages
to
is
pretty
this
much.
in now?
This one is only in English. It's the prior one.
Marijuana horticulture's in like 7
that's 7 different languages. It's
That's
it's
what I
Dutch,
started on.
Dutch, German.
That's the starter book.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
the advanced research copy. But you
Yeah.
can use this as a starter as well.
Oh yeah. It's
I highly recommend the Cannabis Encyclopedia and have for a long time.
Good thing.
Is there any place you've got the website marijuanagrowing.com as well, right?
That's correct. But
Is
you
there-
can find it on Amazon.
Yeah.
All of my books are on Amazon. The last one sold more than 1 million copies. This one, it's on its way.
So we're down to about a minute and a half left. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
Boy, well, I think you guys, right now, it's a beautiful day to plant. You should plant more cannabis. Right now, it's a full moon. You can plant tomorrow morning. You can plant right now. And then the next day is also a good day for planting. And take care of your cannabis. We got some warm weather coming up. I would be planting today, right now.
Thank you, Jorge, again
Okay,
for coming
okay,
on
for
on
sure.
short notice. Thank you, honey. It's our 27th anniversary. We'll have to have her back on again. Mr. John Cornett is standing by, ready to play an exit song. I want to thank you guys for watching. Next week, we'll have Lanny Swerdlow from the California Democratic Party Brownie Mary Club. They've made a big impact in California Democratic politics. And Lanny started this show back in 1996. So we'll be talking about that with him next week. So tune in and help us restore him. Good night.
Another chapter as we turn the page. We exist within the nuclear age. I know that freedom's heard around the globe. Where our future lies will nobody know. Whoa, let's make the best of it now. You never know when the sky will fall. Maybe the moon will reach the earth one day. We're not the same race that we used to be. Can't you see? Now the next time that you fall in love, just appreciate the sun above. 'Cause the sun's shining on and on. So open up your eyes before it's gone. Whoa, let's make the best of it now.